Hello everyone, and welcome to my Vampire Coast analysis ramble video, most likely. This is unscripted, as you could probably tell already. I'm just going to sit here, talk to you. I've got my cup of tea. The roster has just got fully revealed, so I thought I'd wait until now. So some of you guys were asking, when am I going to talk about the Vampire Coast? And if you remember, I have actually talked about them once before. It was in one of my top 10s. I think it was most wanted faction updates, and it was number 9. The link to that is in the video below, or the video description below. But so when this trailer came out, obviously everyone on the planet covered it, and I didn't want to join the whole roster of people who did, because you guys probably opened up your YouTube subscription pages and only saw like screenshots of the trailer and like analysis, reaction, like that kind of thing. I'm not that kind of guy. I just let it go, and then once I've sucked in some information, then I'll talk about it. Except from this time, I decided to just read the roster through with you guys, so I thought that would be cool. The trailer's playing in the background, so you guys will have something to watch while I just ramble about this all as well. So my initial thoughts for the faction were mixed feelings, because very cool faction, but they don't exist. Well, they kind of do exist. So the only thing they've ever had on the tabletop or in the actual Warhammer World lore and gaming wise was, I think it was like the 6th edition maybe, extra like summer campaign. I think they did like Vampire Coasts, and they did a book, and most of the units and models in there were conversions of existing other ones. The only actual model the Vampire Coasts technically have ever had was a pirate vampire, and even he wasn't an official Vampire Coast lord. It wasn't Luthor Harkon or anything, it was just vampire. So they've never been fully supported by Games Workshop. So Creative Assembly have literally created everything on their own. They've come up with the roster, they've come up with the models, what they'd look like, how they'd move. It's very interesting. There's one that I don't really like, but the rest is very cool. So I've gone onto a website called PC Games N. I've never heard of them before, but this is what I'm reading. So Richard Scott Jones, this is all his work. He's just mentioned the roster, so I thought I'd talk through unit by unit while the video plays in the background. So first off, Luthor Harkon. He's obviously the main faction leader. He's the pirate captain. In the lore, he actually helped Nagash rise to power because he helped Manfred. When Manfred and it wasn't Kemler, it was someone else, another necromancer, they marched down south into Kemri to take out the Tomb Kings and get the Black Pyramid of Nagash back. And Luthor Harkon sailed over to the west side of the deserts and helped him out. So he had a pretty big part in bringing Nagash back and helping destroy the Tomb Kings. But so this says here that Luthor Harkon is the founder and governor of the Vampire Coast and will accordingly take over the existing Vampire Coast faction when the DLC lands. Driven mad and cut from the winds of magic by a magical trap set by the lizard men, he cannot cast any spells at all. To compensate for this, he is highly resistant to magic damage and confers this resistance to nearby friendlies. He can also fire his pistol on the move. He's fairly quick, moderately durable, and an excellent duelist. So he's a bit like a witch hunter. Except like the opposite. Instead of like debuffing magic, he buffs magic to nearby units, which is quite interesting. A ranged melee lord. The other legendary lord is Count Noctilus. Never heard of this guy, but that might be because I haven't just gotten into the Dark Elves lore enough. If I can find enough background information on these guys, I'll make lore videos on all of them for you guys. But so the antagonist of the naval-themed tabletop game Dreadfleet, that'll explain why I've never heard of him. Noctilus was once Nikolaus von Karstein of Sylvania, but was drawn to the maelstrom at the heart of the ocean to feast upon his dark magic. He cast a magical ritual to transport himself and his castle to the galleon's graveyard, the Warhammer equivalent of Davy Jones' locker, and was there reborn as Count Noctilus. Noctilus is a tank. He's slow for a vampire, but has high mass and armor, can regenerate lost HP, and has a Necrofex Colossus as a mount option. He also comes with a polearm, making him effective against armoured or large units, and casts spells drawn from the laws of vampires and shadow. His start position is the Galleon's Graveyard, which has been added to the centre of the ocean, south of Ulthuan. That sounds pretty cool. So they're actually adding whole new land masses, which is very interesting. Count Noctilus actually sounds very interesting. I think I'd probably start with him. Aranessa Salt Spite. I think this is the Bretonnian turned bad. Or maybe that's Cloystra Diaphin, I'm not sure. Anyway, another Dreadfleet character. Aranessa Salt Spite is one of the most feared pirate captains of Saratoga, said to be the daughter of the sea god Manan. I think that turns into Mathlan in the Age of Sigmar lore. She is technically alive rather than undead, but her vampiric first mates recruit for her crew by reanimating the corpses of the drowned while out adventuring. The rest of her crew are comprised of human pirates known as the Saratoga Free Company, and she starts in Saratoga, which is why the Pirate Kingdom was recently added to the Mortal Empire's map. Salt Spire is lethal in melee, able to tackle blocks of infantry with sweeps of her halberd, which can otherwise challenge armoured threats. Right, okay, that was written weirdly. She's quick and has high melee defense and physical resistance to represent her agility, but has low armor and HP. She can also pin enemies with her net ability. Okay. And then lastly, last legendary lord is Cloystra Diaphin. Excitingly, Cloystra is the first Warhammer character to be created entirely by the Creative Assembly. This is interesting. Lead narrative designer Andy Hall once worked on Dreadfleet, and we imagine this will have helped him secure Games Workshop's trust along with CA's generally impeccable handling of the IP. Cloystra was once the favoured court singer of a Bretonnian king, but drowned in a storm while en route to sing for the Phoenix King of Ulthuan. She starts on the coast of the New World between Mazdamundi and Morathi. Well, that's interesting that she goes to sing en route to the Phoenix King of Ulthuan, seeing as he was locked in his tower for pretty much years on end during the end times. And if this game is set during the end times, then there's no way he would have even let, well, even the highest of the high elves, Tyrion and Teclis, had never seen the Phoenix King for years, so I doubt they would have let a Bretonnian singer go see her. But anyway, as a ghost, she is resistant to physical attacks, but is otherwise fairly fragile. She can summon a regiment of undead Bretonnian knights to guard her, though as a powerful caster of the Law of the Deep, that's interesting, there was a whole new law. She can also use songs to buff friendly units and slow or damage enemies. Okay, so she's your spellcaster. Lords: Vampire Fleet Admiral male, Vampire Fleet Admiral female. Heroes: Vampire Fleet Captain, hybrid melee caster, uses Law of Vampires, Death and Deeps. Gunnery white, range support, and Mongol Haunter. This is something that was interesting to me. So the Mongol is a Forge World model. It's never been classed as a hero. It's always been a monster. So it's interesting that they've made a Mongol a hero. I don't quite understand how a Mongol could be a hero, but anyway. Armor-piercing anti-infantry. Has Vanguard and Stalk, regenerates HP and melee, strong charge. So they're infantry now. Zombie Pirate Deckhand Mob come with dual swords, better than Skeleton Warriors, but worse than Empire Swordsmen. Zombie Pirate Deckhand Mob with pole arms, the above but anti-armor and anti-large. Zombie Pirate Gunnery Mob comes with pistols and swords, mediocre in melee, but offer massed on-the-move pistol fire. Zombie Pirate Gunnery Mob Rifles, a side grade to the above, sacrificing move and fire ability for range, accuracy, and stopping power. So Zombie Pirate Gunnery Mob is basically free militia, and Zombie Pirate Gunnery Mob are basically worse handgunners without the armor piercing. Zombie Pirate Gunnery Mob with hand cannons, which are essentially ogre lead belchers, but on a smaller scale. Another side grade, hand cannons are comparable to blunderbusses and deal significant medium range damage with high knockback. So they're like troll hammers, essentially. I'm just gonna have a sip of my tea. Hang on a second. Out of my Donkey Kong mug, no less. Zombie Pirate Gunnery Mob Bombers. Smaller than other gunnery mobs, can throw bombs into melee on the assumption that the enemy will feel their losses more keenly than you would through friendly fire. So they're essentially iron breakers. Depth Guard. Heavy infantry with a sword and a hook hand. Armoured but not shielded. Think Grave Guard but more of a damage dealer and thus less durable. Depth guard, pole arms. Again, the same as the above, but anti-large, used to defend vulnerable range attacks, ranged units from cavalry and harassers. Dyrains, relatively quick, near immune to physical damage, but vulnerable to magic, deals magical armor piercing damage. That's basically just a banshee, or a unit of banshees, or a unit of cairn wraiths. Bloated corpse. This is the big hulking troll-looking guys, I think. Reasonably quick, self-destructing infantry. Explodes on contact with the enemy, or when HP falls below a certain threshold. That's quite interesting. Deck gunners. Long-ranged weapon teams with armor-piercing, target penetration, and shield breaker effect on hit. That's quite interesting. War Beast Fellbats, identical to Vampire Count Fellbats. Deck droppers, which you can see in the video. They're the Fellbats holding a rifleman, so they're just essentially Warhawks. Deck drummers bombers, so they're essentially Pterodon riders with the rocks. Scurvy dogs, exactly the same as direwolves, just a bit different. Maybe the odd eye patch here and there, who knows. Artillery, carronade, a long-range anti-large cannon, similar to Empire and Dwarf equivalents, but can load solid or grape shot. Now, grape shot, I think this is the first instance of an actual grape shot cannon in the game, unless they've updated the dwarves. But so, if you haven't ever played Napoleon Total War, cannon obviously is the average big ball, but grape shot is like a shotgun cannon. You'd wait for the infantry to get right up front to you, and then you just put grape shot in. That's really good. I'm glad that they put grape shot in, because it was a real pain to have to keep the cannons around the back. But now you can kind of put them in the middle of your lines and just have grape shot when they come towards you. Queen Bess Cannon is the massive cannon that you see in the trailer. Enormous range and blast damage. Fires in an arc, causes movement penalties to targets on hit. So now we're on to the monsters. The Mongols we've talked about, you can see them in the trailer. Fast, monstrous infantry, armor piercing, May, Vanguard, and Stalk. Regenerates HP in melee. So the Mongol is that horrible wobbly jawed thing. Looks like someone bred an elf with one of the monsters from Amnesia Dark Descent. A very, very popular Forge World model for current Age of Sigmar death armies, because they are very good. So let's see if they're actually really that good in this game as well. Animated Hulks. Monstrous infantry, think resurrected ogres. First heavy unit, strong in melee, ideal to screen for missile units. Rotting Prometheans. Large crabs. High mass and armor. Missile resistant. Charge defense versus large, but relatively slow. So, you see those crabs in the beginning. Imagine that bigger. You know, the crabs crawling on the guy's leg. Imagine that bigger. And it's kind of like heavy cavalry, I'm going to guess. Very slow, but I'm thinking they're going to be comparable to Demogryph Knights, but big. Like, very big. And slow. And then there's Rotting Prometheans Gunnery Mob. Ooh. The same as the above, but ridden by hand cannoneers, so it's basically a ranged... It's just going to be a Stegodon, isn't it? It's just going to be a Stegodon with a ballista on the back, except it's going to have a cannon. Rotting Leviathan is the massive crab. They're probably going to be equivalent to a... what they call the spiders. Arachnarok spider. Giant crab, extremely high armor, HP, mass, and missile resistance. Defense against all... Armor piercing melee attacks ridden by riflemen. They sound awful to try and take down. Necrofex Colossus, which is what I'm going to talk about. Hybrid ranged melee monster, can move and fire, see over most obstacles, and summon zombie deckhands. Right, so this is the one that I'm not sure about. All the others I can kind of believe, but this is the Metalbeard from Lego Movie looking thing. You can see it in the end of the trailer. It's like a boat with legs, with loads of corpses in the boat, and he's got a cannon for an arm, and the other guy's shooting a flamethrower. You would have seen him a couple of times while I was talking through. I'm not sure on this one. It looks a bit goofy to me. We'll see what it's like in the game. Lore-wise, it doesn't quite make much sense because vampires obviously bring things back to life. I mean, what time was that ever alive? I know Tomb Kings have necrosphinxes and stuff, but that's like statues imbued with magic from necrotexts that brought them to life to protect stuff. I don't think the vampires have the same kind of mentality or magic. But maybe he tried to pick something up. Maybe lore-wise, they tried to pick something up from the Tomb Kings, and that's like a really early alpha version of their own kind of hero titan. But anyway, and then there's a Death Shriek Terrorgeist, which is going to be identical to the normal Terrorgeist. So this is a very interesting roster. Obviously lacking cavalry, which will probably be made up with all the range. But the problem is, I'm guessing that this army's main weakness is obviously going to be the weak front line, unless you have a lot of monsters, and no cavalry. It's going to be the same kind of issue with the Skaven, where you could probably swarm and hit them hard, but you're not going to hit them hard when you're actually in combat, and you have nothing to protect your back line. And seeing as a lot of this roster is ranged units, I feel like cavalry and Bretonnia are going to be the real killers for this army. So we'll see, because I can't imagine zombie deckhands are going to be very good if they're going to be better than skeleton warriors but worse than Empire soldiers. I mean, Empire soldiers are pretty squishy. So yeah, that was the whole roster for the new Vampire Coast faction. I hope you enjoyed this ramble and this little talk and this, well, analysis as I go through it all. It was a bit different. I am looking forward to this DLC, but the problem is it's coming on, what, the 8th of November? And I'm still probably going to be in full-fledged Red Dead Redemption 2 mode, as I'm sure many will. And I think Pokemon Go comes out around then as well, so I'm definitely going to make some videos on it. I'm probably going to start as one of the Legendary Lords and just work double time to get as many things out to you guys, because obviously I work 9 to 5 and it's hard to get time out in the evenings when you just want to sleep. But yeah, alright, well hopefully I'll see you guys in the Vampire Coasts. Remember that I've still got a competition going on, so if you want to check that out, check the competition video in my video manager. And I will see you next time. So thank you for listening, and share your thoughts down below. Let's talk about this. I really want to know your thoughts and opinions. Thanks, guys.